The Philadelphia Eagles absolutely have to get back on track this weekend against the Vikings, but even more so, they need to upgrade the roster, and according to reports, Howie Roseman is now getting active on the trade market. So who should they get? What should they do? Well, today, there is a new solution that is right in front of their face that makes perfect sense. The question is, will they actually do it? We'll talk about what that could look like, as well as hear from Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo on the offensive mindset, and we'll hear from Vic Fangio on what he plans to do against two really good receivers this weekend. All that and more coming up here on A to Z Philly. But welcome into the show. I am RB, and you know what? It feels like forever now since the Eagles played that game against the Giants. Maybe I'm just trying to compartmentalize and push that out of my brain, but it's still there. It doesn't feel as bad, but it still is sticking there. And the Eagles have to come back this weekend and get a big win. There's no other way to put it. And if they get carved up by Carson Wentz, right now we don't know whether it'll be JJ McCarthy or Carson Wentz. We will talk more about the preview stuff tomorrow when we get more updates, but it might be Carson Wentz. And if the Eagles lose to Carson Wentz, that could be like the final blow, in my opinion. Now, there is reason for optimism. We're looking at the standings. The Eagles are 4-2. By the way, the Commanders lost to the Bears. They absolutely choked the other night. The Dallas Cowboys lost to the Panthers. So the teams in your division did not keep up the par. They are still behind you. And if we look at the rest of the conference and the NFL, all the teams that we thought were going to be the big juggernauts this year are not playing that well. The Buffalo Bills have lost 2 in a row. They're tied for first with the Patriots. The Kansas City Chiefs are starting to win a little bit, but they are 3-3. You look at the Baltimore Ravens, who are depleted at 1-5. And we go to the NFC, we look at the Tampa Bay Bucks. Their only loss came to the Eagles. Green Bay's 3-1-1. You see them in a few weeks. Detroit has lost 2 games. And San Fran is leading their division at 4-2, but they've had a plethora of injuries. So it doesn't feel like the gap is that wide from the Eagles to whoever you want to say is the best team in the NFL. And there's still room to turn this thing around. And we're going to hear from Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo about that later on. But I want to start with a stat on the defensive side of the ball because ESP put this out. Eagles defensive line this season, 25th in sacks, 22nd in hurries, 28th in percent snaps with a pressure, 30th in tackle for loss, and 24th in yards per carry allowed. Those are putrid numbers. Now, I do think the defense is a little bit skewed. That data is a little bit skewed because of how inconsistent the offense has been. They've put a lot of burden, a lot of pressure on this defense, and there have been a lot of guys banged up. But Vic Fangio has to do better with his crew. The players have to step up. Whoever it is, next man up, has to be that guy. But I think it's also fair to take into consideration the injuries that they have. Now, at the same time, a few days ago, we talked about a couple of players that they should go out to upgrade the defensive line with. Viable options, right? Bradley Chubb, Trey Hendrickson. Go check out that video. I do think they need to make an upgrade on the defensive line. But according to rumors, the Eagles are now, quote unquote, lurking at not only edge rushers, but cornerback, and might even try to upgrade both at the deadline per ESPN. Keep in mind the Philly has made several trades, Jacorian Bennett, John Mechie, Tank Bigsby, and those moves have not paid off yet. So we give Howie a lot of credit, but the guys that he has went out and got and used draft picks for have not panned out so far. And I know that Howie's burning deep down inside saying, you know what, I'm going to make the right move. I'm going to go get a guy that can really help this team out. And while everybody's looking at defensive line, deservedly so, right? I think if you get better edge rushers, and obviously Nolan Smith will come back, things will get better in due time. That will relieve some of the pressure on your secondary, right? They don't have to run around for 10 seconds every play. And Vic Fangio was even asked if Brandon Graham has been discussed as a possibility to come out of retirement and come back to play for the Eagles. He says, not to my knowledge. I don't think BG is the answer. You know, what is he, 36 years old? I love BG. I like the way he went out as a legend, on top, as a champion, and to ask him to come out of retirement, get in game shape, and start getting acclimated back on the playing field just because you did not do your job with addressing the depth on this team and guys are getting injured, I don't think is the right way to go, right? Za'Darius Smith retires out of nowhere. I just don't think it's fair to ask BG to come back and take all of that burden on. If he wants to, great. I wouldn't do it. But Vic Fangio was asked, more importantly, about the secondary and what he plans to do this upcoming weekend. Because keep in mind, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison might be one of the most lethal duos. And right now, it's up in the air whether or not Quinyon is actually going to play. He has a hamstring injury from last week, and we don't know right now. But Vic Fangio says if Quinyon does play, Adoree Jackson will be the second guy. They keep flip-flopping them back and forth. They both are just not that good, but he's ahead of Keeley. However, if Quinyon doesn't play, Ja'Cory Bennett's still on IR, it's going to be Adoree Jackson and Keeley Ringo. And I am telling you right now, that will be an absolute nightmare. I don't think I'll pick the Eagles to win that game if your starting corners are Adoree Jackson and Keeley Ringo. So, what should the Philadelphia Eagles do? Well, there's a new solution. Now, I put this tweet out the other day. It blew up. A lot of people were responding to this. I said the Eagles underestimated the impact that guys like Darius Slay and CJ Gardner-Johnson had in the locker room. No, I don't think they were perfect. I know everybody's going to answer right away and say, well, CJ Gardner-Johnson hasn't been on the same team for more than a year. And Darius Slay was on the podcast with Micah, and these guys were not perfect. I agree with you. But what I will say is, going back to the popular saying, winning cures all, they have to go out and make a move. And CJ Gardner-Johnson was cut from the Ravens practice squad after his agent essentially asked them to do it. An amicable mutual decision. After the Ravens traded for safety, we were looking for a clearer path to play. And I just can't sit here and believe that, 8 months after winning the Super Bowl and playing at a high level, CJ Gardner-Johnson can't make it off a practice squad on a team that stinks right now, that is depleted on the defensive end. I think it all goes back to the attitude thing. And the solution is right in front of your face. It's smacking you in the face. You have to do it. Bring back CJ Gardner-Johnson. It may not work everywhere else, but guess what? It works here. The 2 years that this guy was the starting safety on this defense, they were incredible. And they went to the Super Bowl, and one of the years they actually won it. No, he's not perfect. And yes, he's going to have his moments where he goes overboard, right? And you got to control him and calm him down a bit. But this guy can play football at a high level. You could play him at safety. He can play nickel corner, has experience with that. Maybe he can even play outside as well. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a free agent right now, and he put this tweet out saying, look, I want to take a moment to thank all the teams I've been a part of, coaches, teammates, everybody who supported me along the way. And at the end, he says, I'm excited to keep working, improving, and continuing to play the sport that I love. So he wants to be on a team. The Eagles have a dire need right now. And this is the best option without having to give up any draft picks, without having to do anything else. You go out there, you give him a cheap contract, bring him in, give him an opportunity to prove himself, and watch how this defensive mentality changes overnight. I'm telling you, it'll happen. If you don't want CJ Gardner-Johnson back on the Eagles right now, and you are confident in Adoree Jackson and Keeley Ringo, then you have absolutely lost your mind. Like I said the other day, Howie Roseman kind of overcorrected. You know, he let Slay go, Gardner-Johnson. He let guys like Isaiah Rodgers and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat go. We knew a bunch of them were going to have to leave, but he let all of them go. He tried to get the youngest defense possible, and they're really missing that veteran experience. Even if it wasn't always perfect, it definitely had an impact in the locker room. Now, on the other side of the ball, Saquon Barkley told John Clark that he loved the meeting that the offense had this past week and the mindset they're going into. He says, I don't want to give too much scouting info, but we're looking forward to getting out there and getting back on track. So hopefully the mini bye week did some good. And Nick Sirianni was asked whether or not the evaluation during the mini bye will result in a change at Playcaller, and he says no. He's sticking with his guy, Kevin Patullo, which I expected, but Kevin better be ready to go. I hope he stayed up all night and watched the game film from last year. Kevin Patullo was asked about the offense right now. He says, last year we had some weird things going on that we needed to work through. I think there's a lot of teams in the league still finding their way. I think that's kind of where we're at. We have great players. They're all into it. The energy is high. We know we can be what we want as we work forward. So a lot of word salad there. Do I think Kevin Patullo can turn some things around? Yes. But I think they're overthinking it, you know, as coaches and executives who get paid a lot of money and they're going into this and they're trying to figure out everything and be a rocket scientist and be so brilliant. Like, just simplify it. Go back and look at what worked last year. Use your guys on different routes. Get some creativity flowing. Get some pre-snap motion. What about some play action? Like, it's really not as hard as you're making it out to be. If you have these great, talented, skilled playmakers, use them. Have a feel for the game. Go back to the games this year so far. and see what you're not doing right and fix it. If you have talent, it shouldn't be we have to compensate for a lack of talent and try to do some crazy things. Just keep it simple. Give it to your playmakers. That's it. That's it. There are other issues that are plaguing this team, like the offensive line not being healthy and other things going on. But at the end of the day, if they figure this out and start to make some tweaks and kind of replicate the process that they did last year during the bye week, I feel like they should get it back on track. Give me your thoughts down below. Where do you think this team's at right now? Should they go sign CJ Gardner-Johnson? Appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I will catch you on the next one.